evening, everybody. It's 5:30. We will kick off our work session this evening for discussion of the proposed 2022 budget.
And Ms. Donna, would you like me to drive or would you
Yes.
like this? Okay.
You got it. You got the steering wheel. Well, good evening. This is a big night. We have to do our hearings tonight, or we have to schedule them. So we wanted to go over everything. I just wanted to show you a little bit of what we went over last time. If you remember, this is our 2021 estimated assessed valuation, which brings each meal to $129,733. That's a 1.3 increase over November of last year, which gives us about $1,677 for each meal. The next slide shows what our mill levy rate is and what the R&R mill levy came out to be, and we would have lost 0.6 mills or $77,840 if we'd have stayed with the revenue neutral rate. Last time we gave you 3 options, and we went with option 2 to leave the mill levy the same as it has been the last 3 years. So that's a gain of $105,000 for the general fund. I've also showed you what each of our 5 property tax funds consist of, and it equals our total mill levy of 62.535. I did move 3 mills from bond and interest to general fund. If you remember, a few years ago, we took 5 to 7 mills out, and when the bond and interest really needed it. But through our paying some of those debt service and our refunding some of our issues, that we've saved some money. So that's really helped our bond and interest. So we're able to move that back. The library fund is always on here because we do have to levy a mill for them, although we do not control their budget. The next sheet is the notice of budget hearing. This is what we're required to put in the paper 10 days before, and this is the regular budget hearing, what we've always had to do. And what that red circle shows is our not to exceed expenditures overall, the funds we have at the city. So it's $8,112,721 is our not to exceed. You can always come down from there before you approve the budget, but we cannot go up once we publish. I do want to bring to your attention the very bottom line down there where it says our total debt. If you'll look at 2019, we had $72 million, and we went down in 2020 to $64 million, and we've maintained the $64 million. So we've came down $8 million on that. So that's nice. That's something that that survey about our citizens wanted us to kind of lower our debt. So we're working toward that. The next is just kind of an overall view of the general fund for the last few years. You can see what we budgeted each year and what we came in at. And this year we did add community development up there to kind of break it out so we can track that a little better with historic preservation. And this is the same papers that I've handed out to you on Thursday. So if you have any questions.
On that, may I please note, so this line item for community development, historic preservation, we were trying to be a little more strategic about how we are tracking things and like incentives we offer. For example, the $200,000 of the ARPA money that we're going to issue to Cottonwood Crossing. So we're trying to, this is not new money. We've just divided it out. Before it was all lumped into the admin, it was just one department. And so we're trying to be able to track it more easily for transparency reasons for our citizens so they can easily see the money that's coming and going, whether that's grants or the Main Street program and those kind of things. Does that make sense?
And the next sheet is the one that I handed out to you at the agenda meeting also. It shows what we would have been, where we would have been without the ARPA revenue money coming in 2021, and what we're going to be. And this is if every cent gets spent of our budget. Remember that. That's always how this is. And there are still some contingencies built in. Some things we won't be able to do. But I did want to bring to your attention down below the external agencies. I still have in there what we did last year, $40,000 for Health Ministries and $20,000 for Grand Central. And if you remember, we told you that Grand Central did ask for more, for $32,000. But I did not put that in there at this time. So if anything is changed in your mind one way or the other, we need to know that also before I publish.
And on the screen, so you see the two blue columns. So as Donna mentioned, you've got the one right in the middle, which is the 2021 adopted. And then the one you see next to it, the first blue column there has the $1.2 million in the ARPA money that we have received already. It's in its own little bank account, checking account, just like it's supposed to, so that it can be easily audited and tracked. And so that is included. So if you look at the bottom line, we were approximately 1.149 to the negative if you look at the revenue lines. And including those funds, we are now at about 50,000 to the positive, theoretically, by the end of the year. And that will leave us with about a 20% balance in our reserves. Remember, our policy is to try to keep it about 15%, and that helps us with our bond ratings and getting better interest rates and those kinds of things, as well as being a best practice. And I don't know if you can see the screen. You guys see my little arrow? I can see it. Can you see it on here? Yeah. Okay. So follow me here. I'll see this 50,000 here at the bottom. What happens is this ending balance carries over into the 2022 proposed budget. So that's going to include that 1.2 million. And so that's why it looks a little bleak at the bottom there. If we spent all of the money we're budgeting for during 2022, including all of the ARPA money, which is what we're supposed to do, the directive is to spend it and not save it, and they don't want you investing it or anything like that. They want you to spend it on projects, on people, on services, and that's exactly what we're going to do. And so that's going to put us at about a 4% ending balance next year.
Well, that's without the ARPA.
Without the ARPA funds, right. And so if including those ARPA funds, it'll be, this blue column here, be about a 9%. And we also know, for the benefit of the public and those might be watching at home, is in 2022, we have another allocation of ARPA funding available to us in approximately $1.2 million. However, it will be, probably the rules on how we can use it may be different. Right now, we could reimburse ourselves for lost revenue and claim all of that, and it basically reimbursed the general fund. We don't know that what they're going to base the next year's calculation off of for lost revenue, and we doubt we can claim we won't have as much lost revenue. We will have some because our interest rates have remained incredibly low. That's great for us when we're borrowing money, not so great for our interest investments that was helping bolster the general fund quite a bit. So just keep in mind, we didn't plug any number in for 2022 because we figured this, we would like to have a worst case scenario for you to look at, be conservative, and then when we do get those funds, whether it's $500,000 or $1 million, whatever it ends up being, that we can pull the general fund, that will only help that bottom line. And it's because of this, allocation of funds and the smart investing that we have done over the last few years, and the smart way we are paying off our debt per our citizens' requests. We've been able to refinance some of that debt. We've gotten a couple of large grants that have really helped us out from KDOT and from the FAA. And all of those things together, as well as being just very conservative with our funds and expenditures, have helped us keep the mill levy at this steady rate, and this will be the fourth year in a row that the mill levy has not changed.
Now, you did ask me to tell you what the difference was, because the budget was about 1.6 million increased from 2021. So on the next slide, I kind of broke down what the increases were. And there's a few I didn't include that were little 500s here and there, so I just went down this far, but it's pretty close to the $1,630,000 that it was. So if you have any questions on this shows wages, taxes and benefits, our health insurance, the $200,000 for Cottonwood Crossing, street materials were increased, property insurance went up. We did have to increase a transfer from sales tax to eco-deval, which is, it's good because we're getting more sales tax, so we're having to transfer 50% of that over to economic development. So we need to up that transfer so that we're okay with our budget authority. There are some building materials that have increased. Mandated training for the fire and police have increased some. Street and alley maintenance, it just goes down the list. One thing I did, increase transfer for the demolitions of, we only have 10,000 going over there, so I put another 15,000, so we have 25,000 per year to help us with when we have to demo a house or something like that.
And you guys have recently seen how quickly that goes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did increase for utility costs, maintenance cost, some of our traffic signs and our signal maintenance, agricultural supplies, grave openings, tent service, just it kind of shows you what it all was. It just adds up little by little. Just when you go to the store and start throwing stuff in your basket, all of a sudden you got a lot of money in there and you didn't realize it. But that's kind of how it is here. Just things come up, and we try to include everything in the budget that we might need. So that's what this is. Does that help you all? Did you have any questions?
Yeah, I think it's very helpful. Obviously, the first line's the highest. Is that because we're trying to bring up pay to match?
Yes, it is more than it would normally be.
Right, okay.
Slightly more, yeah. And so
I
that'll
think
be
just
a
if
one-off
the
kind of
public sees
thing.
this, that will be helpful to them, is that we're trying to be more competitive in the field of hiring and
Yeah.
retaining employees.
Yes.
You can go down to the Amazon facility just a few miles down the road and
my
get paid
goodness,
more than many of our first responders. make here starting.
Absolutely,
So-
absolutely, yeah. And to your point, sir, that's a great comment. So we did a wage survey, and we surveyed communities that were comparable to us in the Midwest, communities about our size that we often get compared with. We didn't want it to be skewed, so we didn't comp like Boston or something that wouldn't be fair, cost of living. So we tried to use comparable communities. And then we also comped, basically you had a couple of options with the firm that we used that did this for us. They comped salary at the 50th percentile, at the 60th percentile, and the 75th, and they would have done others if we won like 90 or whatever. So what that means is at the 50th percentile, that means we're right in the middle of the pack. We're paying what everybody else that does the same kind of work is paying. 50% pay more than we do, 50% pay less than we do. We would have loved to have gone to like the 75 percentile and been, really an employer of choice pay-wise. It wasn't financially feasible, frankly. It was hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars more. So what we did was we looked at the positions, and most of the ones that were below the 50th percentile, those are the ones that we pulled up to be at that 50th percentile. And I don't know, 2/3 of them, if not more, maybe 75% of them were very much our frontline workers. It is your paramedics and your firefighters and our EMTs, entry-level officers. It is public works and street, water and wastewater. And I know we've had this conversation, and we're not unique. Everyone is struggling to find employees right now. So we are fortunate that we have really great benefits because we get to utilize CAPERS and KPNF through the state that private employers can't. And those are great benefits for many of our employees. So you have to look at not just pay. So yes, while we would have loved to have been able to afford to pay more, we want to make sure we are being fair and paying good wages. And I would use an entry-level paramedic, firefighter, as an example, because we've recently had an open position. And, right now, our entry-level folks make about $14 an hour and some change. And that is usually with your, at least your EMT certification and your fire science degree, if not licensure, which is an associate's degree. I mean, you can go check groceries at Walmart here in Newton for more than that. So, and these are people we're asking to put their lives on their line. So it's just important. We want to do right by our people, and we are service. We are our people. We are service by nature. That's what we do.
And part of the need for the overtime is the fact that we're not fully staffed. Is that right?
Partially, yes, and partially, and correct me if I'm wrong here, especially for you guys who use a lot of the overtime. Some of it is staffing issues, and some of it is required items, like we can only work firefighter because of the shifts that they work, because of the lengths of the shift. They have to have so many days off in between, and so they have to take an extra paid day off by law. I mean, it's kind of a mixture of things, but yes, it's because we've been short-staffed, and we are seeing increasing call volume. Significantly increasing call volume, and we're trying to maintain the status quo and not add staff.
Also, if you have an emergency or something, a water breaks and it takes 2 or 3
Right.
to
Yes.
fix it
Yeah.
over the weekend, we have to pay
Storm
overtime.
cleanup.
Yeah.
Right, storm, I mean, it's a litany of things,
The
and
storm, this most recent storm that we had everybody out. We had to call
every
everybody out.
person with,
And we had everybody out on the street, so they were working all the way through. And so I don't know, there's nothing we can. Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
so-
It always happens after 5.
couldn't happen on like Monday at noon, that would be too easy when you have the whole week to clean up. But,
Okay.
yeah, so it's a mixture of things.
On the salary surveys,
Yes, sir.
do they compare salaries with, clear across the board, or do they do it like on an average, like on entry-level position, do we compare with an entry level?
Yes, and they actually don't even just look at the job titles, because you can have job titles at organizations that are exactly the same, but they might do very different things. And so they actually looked at the job duties and descriptions of those comped positions. And then basically they comped the midpoint. So they would do like a starting and an end. And so that's kind of how they determined what the midpoint was. And then they work backwards into, like a certain, we do, and most communities do this, a lot of private sector does this too, it's a grade in steps. So you might be like a grade 10, step 3. Well, on your annual evaluation, you might go to step 4 if you've done satisfactory work. And so then they created a whole new wage scale for us as well. So we will implement that. So no one in our organization, we did have some positions that were comped higher, like we pay higher, and that's not all bad. Sometimes that person's been with our organization a very long time and they've worked their way up through the pay scale and they're kind of topped out on salary. So you have to remember it's not just one thing, and then we have to add what's the value of those benefits we're providing to it. So it's not just based, it's the whole package. We want to make sure that we are taking care of our people all the way around.
Well, and even since the survey was completed.
Oh, my goodness,
There has been a spike in what other businesses are paying. I mean, even
Hugely.
the Amazon stuff has kind of come after that. And we've got other contractors, which is, we have a big part of our workforce that's blue collar. And contractors are paying sign-on bonuses of $2,000 plus their wages are significantly higher. And they can't find people either. So it's not just a problem that we have, but it is certainly.
Seen lots
Everywhere.
of signs,
Everywhere, yeah.
sign-up bonuses.
If you can moonlight digging holes right now, I would say go for it. That's, I mean, it is. It's a lot of manual labor type positions, and it's difficult to find people who want to put the work ethic into it too, because it's hard work.
Yeah, it is.
Well,
There's
thank
no
you for those
corner office.
real-world examples. I think
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
really important to be able to share that.
Yep. I would agree. And we're happy to, if you need specifics on anything, or if you guys, because we know you are the ones who get most of those questions and people unhappy, or once in a while we get the happy folks who do like, and we really appreciate those folks who share the great stories about, our public works staff who come in after hours and on Sunday nights to fix somebody's, pipes that have broken on a holiday when they've got company. I mean, we've got some amazing folks in our organization. We need to be lifting those up too.
I agree. And that was kind of all we were going to talk about in the general fund, unless you had some more questions or anything like that.
Thank you.
Okay, we're just going to kind of go through the other major funds to kind of show you what we've done. The next is the bond and interest fund, and this is showing you the budget, and it has a negative balance in there, but there is money in that fund to take care of this. And there's like a $600,000 balance in there, and we'll just slowly use that as we go forward, because we don't need that much in there. So that's what that is for.
And I might note, we've bonded a little bit, but we haven't bonded a whole bunch lately. So remember that a lot of those bond issues require us to put a certain amount in reserve, like the first and last month's payment, like your mortgage does when you make the down payment. So we have to hold a certain amount in reserve. So don't let the net revenues there. That just means we were able to transfer a little less money from general fund like we talked about.
And I will be coming back to you this year. We're going to have to amend the bond and interest budget, just because we're doing a refunding issue of the 2013A, and we're going to save about $50,000 a year and $600,000 overall, or something like that. It's not going to be any longer, but that comes in as a current refunding, so it goes against the budget authority we have. So I just have to show it coming in and going out. I just have to raise my numbers so that we're not in trouble with the auditors. So that'll come to you later this year. The airport looks good. It's doing very well. We kind of getting our fuel to be where it's more normal, and we know what's coming in. It was kind of up there real high for a while and coming down, but it is going back up again. And we've got our lease payments and stuff like that, so airport is doing very well right now.
And remember, that's a partnership 50/50 with the county. So they also contribute funds towards this. It doesn't all come from the city's mill. Some of it comes from the county's budget. I believe a mill from them as well,
90,000 from
the county.
county.
And these are, remember, what are called enterprise funds, which means they have some way to generate revenue, whether that's the fuel sales, those kind of things. So same as Meridian Center, same as Sand Creek Station. They're all kind of generating, and you hope that they generate enough that they become self-sufficient, unless we have a bad pandemic year where we can host events or things. So. And then golf does really well, so it's kind of a trade-off.
Then we have the sanitation fund, and that's budgets went up a little bit from last year, not much. And again, all the enterprise funds have a lot more in there for contingency purposes, because we don't have to worry about charging for that unless it happens. We have the money in reserve, but we do try to have all those contingencies in there that might happen. So you can see in the past years where we've not went in the red, you'll notice that in the water and the sewer, that we've not done near as bad as what the budget looked like we were going to. And here's wastewater, the next one. It went up a little bit more this year. You can see in the past, we've almost about broken even. 2020 was 256 in the red. 256,000. Same thing with waterworks. And these are all including the new wage survey. These are all increases in the personal services as well. So they've all, it was citywide that we did this. And waterworks seems like every year we're about 200,000 negative. So we need to, we're not hurting enough now, but in a few years we'll have to look at what we're going to do about our rates. Hopefully by the time we have to do that, we can be done with the,
Maybe our perfection period with the district will be done, and we could adjust.
right, because we pay about 200,000 in water for that right now. For the PWWSD. The next one is the golf course. And you can see we're doing very well on that. We have money in next year's budget for new carts, maybe with the new GIS in them. So we don't have the ones we have right now, which are not very nice.
And we are planning to, supply chain allowing, that's the, the disclaimer right now. Supply chain allowing, we're planning on lithium batteries because they last longer, they charge faster, they're more affordable, they have a little bit longer lifespan. So this will be a nice upgrade. We wanted to do it last time, but the price point in the research wasn't quite there yet, so we think we're there now.
And the lease that we have will run out next year. Perfect timing.
Yep, so it'll be cycled out.
And the last one is the Meridian Center. And this is all what we hope will happen. We know they're still struggling a little bit due to the COVID issues, but they are busy out there. That's good.
And I would make a note on Meridian Center. We are, one of the allowable expenses for the ARPA money was the reimbursement of lost revenue. And so we are pulling some of that back specifically to Meridian Center. So it will help them, and that way it'll help with equipment replacement, wages, those kinds of things. So.
And that's what that $100,000 is?
That's what we want. No, that's the $100,000 that's in there is what he gets every year from the Eco Depot Fund.
Yeah, from the sales tax money.
That's what was just put in there from the beginning to help that thing.
You're not
Oh, well.
showing the insertion into any of these funds from that
No,
ARPA fund.
because we have not brought, we need to come back to you before we scoot everything around and talk to you about that. Once budget is over, we'll come back and say, this is what we suggest. We've talked about the 1.2 million for the general fund. And that's, we still like your approval. Think we probably have it because we've been talking about it. You guys haven't said anything. But the other would be like the 100,000 to the Meridian Center, so much to the NRC, and so much to help our utility customers with
Right.
programs that Rebecca has been coming up with for us.
Right.
So we'll come back and show you all that.
And our partners at the NRC have been in a really tough spot because they are one of these, literally by definition, they're called a quasi-governmental agency, and they haven't qualified for any of the other monies. So they didn't get any of the CARES Act money. They weren't eligible, and so they are eligible here, but it would come from the allocation that we received. And so we have been discussing with them. I mean, they're great partners for us, and any way we can help them because they help us. They, if we can help bolster their budget for some of their revenue loss, maybe that is the help we need to purchase, another restroom or, playground equipment, those kinds of things, improvements at Centennial Ball Field, those types of items.
We try to work together, and their CIP, the Public Building Commission CIP, and our CIP all have things that are in common, not duplication, but in common. And if the NRC's CIP can't fund something, it may be something that falls back on us. So we want to try and help lift them up in the operating budget area so that the CIP doesn't fall.
Plus, look how many people of our citizens that use that facility. And a lot of them are the low income, that they need that.
So
we
then
wanna help
is
them.
it just a technicality of the classification of how they are, how it's worded on paper, the NRC, is why they don't qualify?
Yes and no. Some of the money came out, said it could only be used by a private business, like the money that the county got last time that they, doled out to the businesses here in the community. Well, they didn't qualify for that. They are not a nonprofit, I don't believe, and so they don't qualify for that. They are not a local government entity, and so they didn't qualify either as like a township or a city or a county entity would. They weren't a school district. So they have just literally, entities like them have kind of fallen through the cracks everywhere. And so this was an allowable use, was anyone who hasn't already utilized those other funds. You can't duplicate if
They
they've
don't
already
even
received
levy their
funds.
own tax. They have to levy it through the school district.
There was even discussion on this round, which was going to change our allocation. There was discussion about whether townships would qualify. And if townships qualified, that would have shrunk our amount that we received, but they did not qualify according to what the federal government put out.
Yeah.
So there are some odd pieces in there. I mean, we don't make the rules on this, so we don't quite understand how it gets divvied out, but we are required to follow the rules.
And they changed quite a bit. Even now, they're still changing.
Yes, they do.
They're changing as we go along. So that's why we haven't brought you that formal proposal yet. We were actually waiting until somebody signed off and said, this is the final rules and regs, and that's what we will operate under once we get those. So we just pulled it down. It's hanging out in its own account, easily accounted for and audited. So.
One thing I have to do is report on it September 30th, and it's due by October 30th is what we've done with our money. Well, if we haven't done anything yet by September 30th, I can just say we haven't done
That's an
anything.
easy
That
report.
quarterly report's a great
So I'm
one.
waiting till October before we divvy this money up. That's another reason you're not getting it right fast, so. Is there anything you would like to discuss about the budget?
Or any slides you'd like us to go back to, anything we can
No.
help clarify. So.
We'll talk about the proposed budget and the not to exceed during the budget and have you guys vote on it then about the budget hearing.
Well, I think we still need to go back and look at the senior center. I mean, we did have some discussion on that, but we never came to any conclusion that I can recall.
Yeah, so every year, remember the outside agencies, almost all of them are on contracts now, which is very helpful for their budgeting processes. It's stability for when they apply for grants and matching funds. They can show that they've got something. Those contracts are renewable on an annual basis. For example, like the Chamber's contract, we will renew it annually, and that's when the funding is evaluated. One of the few remaining ones that does not have a contract yet was the senior center. They were very interested in that, and Vice Mayor and I met with a member of their board, the chairman, I believe, and their executive director. And we talked about it, and we talked about how we understand that costs are going up everywhere. We acknowledge that. We see it, in our own house here. However, because of that, we have to be very careful and make sure that we are getting the most benefit. And we have been asked by the citizens and by our governing body to be, keep the mill levy steady, which means if we're going to keep the mill levy steady, we don't have extra income to increase their asks as well. So we kind of reminded them of that, we had budgeted $20,000 last year, and that's what we had included in the proposed budget here. We did receive their financing request for $32,000 following that conversation. So I think they're very hopeful that you will consider that. However, the $20,000 is what we have included.
So do we want to have the discussion of, even of that $20,000, are we all okay with that? Have they provided, their financials or their projections on what they're gonna change or?
Oops, sorry. And no, sir, I have not received anything from them. I know that they've just filled out the annual request form that goes back to Donna and the city clerk's office, Ms. Denise, with their request. We did talk to them about what could be included in a potential contract to show that we had performance metrics that we would be measuring. They did note for us that they have multiple visits and services now that they're reopening after the pandemic and that their visitors are coming back. And it's a matter of, do we count the number of visits? Maybe a person comes in and, does a wellness check and has a blood pressure check with the nurse, and they leave and come back, and then maybe they go do silver sneakers over at the rec, and then they come back, and each of those is counted as a visit. Or is the metric more in line with how many people have that paid membership? Or the one-off, they don't want the membership, maybe they're visiting from out of town, or they come in to see family and they just come in once. And that number was, I believe, less than 100 people total.
I think it was 92, if I remember right, the people that actually have paid memberships.
Whatever metric, it needs to be unduplicated. So, were they receptive to a contract, or were they like?
They were
"Not
very
right
interested,
now,"
and yeah, they
or-
were very interested in having the contract in place, again, for the same reasons that the others are. It's easier for them to apply for grant funding if they can show that in-kind match, that it's not, that there's a little more stability than just, an annual allocation. It helps people like, I know they get money from Blue Cross Blue Shield, I think. Vice Mayor, I can't remember who she said it was. Some of their bigger grants they wanted to apply for.
I don't remember who, yeah.
They want some more substantial documentation of those, other funding mechanisms. Usually you have to show that for a match.
I did notice on there that they're getting $24,000 from the county.
Yes,
And
the
it's
county
been the
actually
same the
levies
last
on their
few
behalf.
years, and they did not ask them for more money.
The county actually has a senior-specific mill levy. Now, that's shared countywide, so it's, so, but I believe their portion is the $24,000. So it's whatever direction you would like to give us as staff. You can set a number, and we'll just tell them that's the number. You want to talk about the metrics and how you're determining it. I know there were conversations early on also about how do other people fund their centers, and we did a little bit of comping for you, and we had talked about some of those ideas, like if there's 100 members for a good, easy number to go off of, do we say we will provide you a certain amount of funding to serve those 100 people? Like, do we say we will give you, I don't remember what we talked about now. Do you give them like $150 for every member for an annual allocation? And that encourages them to drive up their membership and be sure they're providing programming that has value to the community and those people that they're serving. It's a very valuable service. Just like we need a very strong business community, we need a strong chamber to serve those businesses. We need, strong youth programs in our rec centers and our Ys, and then we need something for senior citizens too. So, but that model is changing, as you know. Seniors that are very active seniors are not necessarily looking for the same things they were 5, even 10 years ago.
There needs to be something in the contract too, that they need to perform to this level, or it goes down or gets taken away, or something like that too. You can put that
I
in.
kind of like the membership model.
And just throwing out there, I know that some other places do that, and it helps encourage them to go out and recruit new members.
I was a little surprised, they have 92 members, but
That pay the annual membership, yeah.
But what did you call it? The uses, the 13, it was like
Visits,
13,000
yeah.
visits.
Yeah.
If you do the math on that, then they're not collecting money from some people, or those other
sure.
people are doing lots of stuff.
It's probably a mixture of both.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, if one person goes once a day for a week, they get counted as being 5 times, instead of saying we have one member.
Yeah.
And
That's why it needs to be unduplicated, and it's a big problem to get to that number.
But it will not hurt to leave it in what we've done for the hearing and stuff like that.
Right.
We can always come down, remember.
Sure.
Now, if you wanted to give more, then we would have to take it away from somewhere else once we publish this number.
Right. I think
and 20 is what we gave them last
20
year.
is what we gave them.
I think it's fair to leave it at 20 this year, with the exception of putting a contract in place for years to come.
We can share
That
that.
We
gives
can
us
leave it in the
time
budget
to-
and then come up with the
Yeah.
contract before we pay it out. I mean, this is just a budget. It's just what we might be doing with our money. You don't have to,
Well, I think we're right to not exceed that 20,000 that we have penciled in, so.
I think we can probably all agree on the 20,000.
Yeah, I
Move
think,
forward.
I
As the not
think
to
it would
exceed.
be
As the
good
not
for
to
them
exceed.
to come back, though, definitely, and present like they have in the past, so that we have the opportunity to ask them
absolutely.
questions. Because the one thing that's always concerned me is the visits, signing in, coming. If you come back 3 times a day, you sign in, and you do that 5 days a week. There's 15 just for one person.
Well, I'm concerned about them asking us for such a large increase, but not asking their other funders for the proportional share at least.
Well, we can absolutely set up a work session if you'd like and have
And what I
them
need
come
to
speak
give
to you.
you is
so-
a copy of what they sent to us, so you can see
Please.
their papers.
So when do we have to have that decided for certain?
By the 24th with next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And then remember, this is just a not to exceed. So if you decided you wanted to change the metric or something for the next calendar year, that gives us several months to get that in place and we can talk about that.
Right.
Yeah, this is just, we would not exceed that $20,000 total for them.
So we're okay the way it is right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good.
Good.
I'm good.
Was there any other
No, just-
budget dust and
Just any questions you have now, we just wanted, we don't like surprises for you guys and we don't like them either. So we try to get as much information to you as we can. If we haven't provided something that you would like to see before next meeting, email Donna or I and we will get it together and send it to you. Whatever that question may be, or as you're getting questions in the public, if it's not something you've got readily available, you're always welcome just to refer them to us as well. So on your agenda this evening are the 2 required publications that say we will hold the new revenue neutral hearing as well as the standard regular budget public hearing. Same information, same numbers. It's just a technicality. We can hold them the same night, so that's nice. So that is what is in your packet tonight, is setting those hearing dates for next meeting, which will be the 24th. It would be nice, we had talked about maybe doing that as a special call meeting, like at 6 p.m., so that there'd be nothing on there but those 2 budget hearings. And that way, if somebody wants to come just for that or just tune in just for that, they sure can. It was just ease of reference, we hoped, for the public and access. If you're comfortable with that, that's what we have included in the packet, is we posted it as a 6 p.m. start time. And if we do have a lot of people who show up and want to talk, we get to the beginning of 7 o'clock regular commission meeting, we would just basically pause the budget hearing, we would do the regular meeting, and then we would resume that public hearing. Another reason we did that is we have several large projects that have been pending for a while and keep getting pushed off to a next agenda, waiting on either a contractor, consultants, our development partners, whatever the case may be. And it's looking like the 24th is going to hit heavy with a lot of them right now. So
An all-nighter?
hopefully not. We will do our best to keep it from being that way. So.
But this has been a long budget season, it seems like, for me and staff, and
Just
I'm
the new
sure for you
rules
guys
and-
too. So thank you for asking the right questions and working with us, and hopefully we helped you understand everything very well.
Well, it seems to me it's been a pretty good team effort here.
Very
It
much
has.
so.
And staff has done well, has been very responsive to our questions, and the other commissioners, we've all had some good discussions about things. I know we've had some, do we lower the mill, do we raise the mill, do we keep it flat, try and take advantage of some of the assessed value increases. And I know sometimes we can get to a point where we look back and go, well, did we do the right thing? When it comes to these budgets, it's you can't just keep creating money. You have to live within your means, and I think I appreciate the staff's willingness to tighten their belts and look for those pennies elsewhere. And there wasn't a lot of pushback when the commission said we're going to keep the mill levy flat. We knew what it would do to the departments and the city, and make you have to work to keep in those lower numbers versus what the original ask was. But I thank you guys for that willingness.
Like I said, we are very much a team. We appreciate it. Yeah. And our job is just to, you guys set the policy direction and we will figure out how to make it work.
After things slow down a little bit, I think it's pretty important we take a look at some of the projects that economic development, together with the city, has kind of pending, and do a little dreaming about what it's going to cost to get those there, because it scares me a little bit that those people, to get them, you have to give them a tax abatement, which doesn't mean that the city isn't going to be spending money to do their part of what we have to do to as a part of the long-range plan, to increase our valuation so that, you know, we don't have to raise the mill levy. We can cover increases just by virtue of the fact that we've done a good job there. But there's going to be that interim that we have, that between when those people start doing their projects and we start realizing the benefit of the increase in valuation, that's going to be 10 years. You know, it does scare me a little bit to think that you know, we don't want to let firemen go or policemen go because we're trying to meet those demands. There very well could be a time that we have to think about raising more revenue in order to make sure we keep up with our growth. We'll realize the benefit at some point in time, but certainly that's the pain that you have to go through to get those companies to come here, because if we don't give them a tax abatement, somebody else is going to. So be dreaming about, I know at some point in time we're going to have to put in a road, you know, out there to meet the needs of the big company that we're talking to right now. Those aren't free.
It's going
you
to
have to
require
pay for 'em
railroad infrastructure, and we do our best to try always to diversify our revenues, whether that's on an ongoing basis, like the increased sales tax revenue, that helps offset some of, unfortunately, now it's offsetting some of the interest income we lost right
Correct.
now, but eventually, as those communities, as the community grows as a whole, whether it's citizens or companies or, you know, the new Freddy's that is here, we are going to continue to generate that tax, and these people have to have some place to live. That is why housing has become our #1 priority as a community.
And then along with that, we want to, as we look, 1, 2, 4, 5, 8, we don't want to do this herky-jerky stuff of, oh man, all of a sudden we have to raise it 6 mills, you know. We want to do, if that's what it's looking like, then tiny little incremental raises so that it's kind of a smooth transition, not this big one-time thing.
Absolutely.
That
And that
doesn't
is repeatedly what the citizens have asked for, whether that has to do with the water rates, or, you know, utilities, trash and recycling, and mill levy increases. They've said, please don't ever do these, don't do that to us again. I don't want these big jumps. You give it to us incrementally so that we can slowly adjust our cost of living. And we hope that the market overall, not just our market and our local economy, but overall, we're hoping that, you know, we're seeing the wage upward, that, you know, trending upward for all lines of employment, and that's going to help people to have more income so they can afford more luxuries and more essentials too.
I mean, ideally, we'd like our valuations to go up 5% a year, but that's probably not realistic. If it would,
Some years
if we could
maybe, and
see,
some
if
years, yeah.
we could see the magic ball here of the next 5 years, 5% a year, we probably wouldn't even have to have
And
this
the preference
conversation.
would be for that to go up because we have new stuff.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then more amenities, and then rooftops, and that keeps workers here buying local, and it just helps everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a flywheel, and you start turning it, and it gets better.
We're lucky to have staff that knows what they're doing, because I've seen communities get themselves in trouble just because they were trying to squeeze a dollar a little bit too hard, or didn't understand, you know, just didn't understand the way it worked like they needed to. So, thank you.
Thank you.
It's our pleasure. Thank you. Well, if you don't have any more questions for us, we can adjourn the work session and take a little break, and you guys can finish your meals, and then we will reconvene at 7 for the regular meeting.
This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.